Welcome to the Early Years Insight. I'm Kathy Leatherbarrow from Eden, and today's guests are Lucy and Matthew Pottinger, who are the owners of Grassroots Nurseries. Welcome.
Hi.
Right, so we're going to look at how early years practitioners have moved on and had to evolve with their roles. It's not just about caring for children anymore and helping them develop in their learning. It's all about treating the family, not treating, but supporting the family holistically to ensure that the child is getting their best start in life.
Yeah.
Do you find that a lot with your nursery?
Yeah, we've had to really adapt. I mean, we've been open since 2018, and the changes we've seen since then, you've gone from an early years practitioner doing a level 3 qualification, and then we have the EEF are doing a lot of things at the moment. We've just signed up to do the, I think it's coaching children's emotional well-being. Yeah. There's lots of things that are being thrown out for practitioners to join and kind of get involved in. But with our parents, if you think of a day-to-day routine of a practitioner, you're greeting parents at the door. That's a real skill. If you've got parents that have had an issue, that might be been up in the night, it takes some real coaching to support a family and children that might not want to come into the setting. You've got to really step up. It's not a case of picking up a child and taking them into the nursery anymore. We're looking more at emotional well-being. Are we giving the child time to emotionally regulate before they're coming through the door? Are we really thinking holistically? You've really got to put your investigative skills into practice.
And it's a big skill anyway.
It really is.
Just trying to normally help encourage children to self-regulate their emotions anyway.
We've been
learning and understanding that it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be angry, to be cross, to be happy, and learning to differentiate between those emotions and deal with them is a skill. Yeah. But then when you're taking on board the parents' emotions as well, and you're being passed over a little tot at the door with a parent that is either tired, cross, stressed, unhappy, poorly, which all then impacts the child's beginning of the day, doesn't it?
Our philosophy from the start has also been about how we look after our staff. We say happy staff, happy children, and we have a huge emphasis on supporting their emotional health and well-being. And one thing we've noticed, we've been doing a lot of trauma-informed practice recently, safeguarding and, children's well-being's just really taken quite a nosedive since COVID especially. Yeah. And a lot of the staff training we've been doing, we write a lot of our own in-house staff training, and we've been focusing around the adults' self-regulation, because we're finding with our staff, we're telling them and supporting them to teach a child to emotionally regulate, but we have a lot of adults that don't know how to do it as well. Yeah. And yes, they're in a professional setting and they're having to do what they need to do professionally, but we feel like we need to tap into that further. Are they getting the support? Do they know how to recognise when they may be feeling like they're being triggered by a child, and they're feeling unregulated themselves? Are they asking for help from the team members? Are they reflecting on
it's
that?
Still seen as a weakness, isn't it?
It is, definitely.
Very much of a weakness rather than a strength to be able to recognise and say, I'm struggling here, can I have a little bit of support? Because like you say, unless they are aware of their own mental well-being, then they're going to find it very difficult to support children in recognising that, aren't they?
We say that all the time. One of the biggest and best strengths you can have as a person is to say, I'm really struggling right now and I need help.
Do you find your staff's emotional well-being is very different following COVID? Did your nursery stay open?
We did. We lived in the setting for 10 weeks.
Really?
Yeah, we lived with my dad died in the November, and we went to move in with my mum because she was really struggling with the grief. And then when COVID hit, she has COPD, so she was like, you'll kill me, you can't live here. So me, Matt, 4 children and the dog moved into the nursery for 10 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, that was enjoyable.
We had two members of staff.
2 members of staff came in. We didn't have many children, but over them 10 weeks, we got busier and busier. Had to release more staff out of in isolation because just to help with the capacity. And in the September after COVID, we had 53 children start in nursery.
Wow.
That was
And what you registered for?
Well, we can have 53 children.
Oh, right, okay.
But yeah, obviously across the week we had loads of children start, and we ended up opening another setting in the January.
And obviously everybody has come out of that in a very different place, haven't they?
Definitely.
You know, even the most well-rounded adult, I believe has come out of that lockdown and that period of our lifetime, different people.
Yeah.
Do you feel that we're still adapting to that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a catch-22. I did my master's in psychology over COVID as well, and my dissertation was on how parents, mothers and their babies, how they coped during COVID, and it was a 50-50 split of people that thrived
Really?
and really enjoyed the time with the baby in isolation without other people getting involved, and
Really invested in that bonding time.
gave the father
Yeah.
a chance to bond with the baby. And then the flip side, people that just
Couldn't cope.
didn't have the experience they expected.
It's very difficult bringing a baby home for the first time anyway, isn't
yeah,
it?
definitely.
You know, because I remember my first, I put her down in her car seat in the lounge and I just stood there and looked at her and thought, what do I do now?
Where's
And
the
her
manual?
And her dad looked at me and said, you're meant to be a professional in this. I went, not in her, not in mine. And I felt really overwhelmed with the pressure of being totally responsible for this tiny, helpless human being.
I think it's probably the hardest job in the world being a I say that. I mean, we've got 6 children between us, and I can go to work and you give me the most difficult child in the world and I will be on it, support that child. I can help. I go home and I'm like, no, I'm out. I can't do this. Because you're emotionally invested.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much more, right, there's the element of judgment, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's the if I get it wrong, what's going to happen?
You're supposed to
You
know
know.
what you're doing because you work in this
Yeah,
environment.
absolutely. It's really, but like you say, anybody else's child, you're the font of all knowledge, aren't you? You know this, you've got this, you've studied it for years, you've learnt through experience, highs and lows. Crack on, we'll support this child, with their early development, but
Bring you your own and that's it. Everything's out of the window. But I think as well, like since COVID, we've seen a huge rise in children with SEND needs, children with just developmental delay, child protection.
I know speech and language was a very big area of concern coming out of COVID, because children weren't getting the social interactions, the rich vocabulary, the broad range
That was
of
a
vocabulary.
huge issue, definitely.
But I can see from research and papers that are being wrote that things are on the rise again and on the up, and children's language is, coming on and developing.
There were so many interventions put in place as well, like we do See and Learn, we do with speech and language coming quite often to support some of our children with SEND needs. And I think everyone's knowledge, confidence, is a big thing in early years practice, because you question a lot. Is what you're doing, is it right? Is it good enough for the children? But I think we've had a couple of years now. I think we say this with our SEND children. We feel like we've done it that much now. We know what we're doing. We know. And I think one of the most important things is it's knowing who to go to for advice. Yeah. We always say it's not what you know, it's who you know. Yeah,
it's trustworthy, isn't it? But not just trustworthy, that there's going to be a result there for that child.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. And supporting the families, because you've got to practice what you preach, don't you? You've got to make sure what you're doing is right. And we work with Portage, we work, like I say, with speech and language. It's just having someone that you can pick up the phone to and be like, hi, it's Lucy from Grassroots, are you okay? And having that relationship with them, that no question, because I think a lot of people are fearful of asking the question for sounding stupid or like you should know this. Yeah. But that's not the case. No. We're there to support each other.
And I think, like we've said, it's not a case of, doing your level 3 in early years anymore and learning how different children learn and throwing some schemas in and different theories. It's that holistic approach of what adults are working with these children, what are their skills and their, attributes to certain types of children, and, and then what other resources do children need. It's like you say, mental health and well-being is high on the agenda, isn't it? You only have to put anything into Google at the moment. And it's up there, isn't it? It's up there on, whether it's a child, whether it's an adolescent, whether it's an adult. It's a big topic of conversation, isn't it? And I think there's some recognition that we all need to be okay. And okay in saying that we're not okay as well, in order to get the best out of children and the best out of ourselves, isn't it?
It's also, I think that it's had a bit of negative effects. I think it's also brought around a fear of parents. We're seeing with parenting at the moment a lot of parents that are wanting to really do attachment style parenting, or really give the children the opportunity to make choices, but we seem to have gone a little bit too far with it, and we've got children that there's no boundaries in place.
There's a fine line there, isn't there?
And parents that have they don't want to bring any trauma onto the child, so they don't want the child to cry and get upset and feel, and we're trying to say to them, let them feel the feelings, this is normal, it's okay. And I think people are just, I do think there's too much information out there, and I think it gets too confusing. I'm on the Starting Well board for Calderdale, and it's all about how we can support children from 0 to 5 to have the best outcomes. And I've said thousands of times on there needs to be, it's like Tiny Happy People, it's a brilliant website for families, but then there's 20 other thousand, there's so much information.
And everybody's got a different perspective on it, haven't they? And that's good, and that's right, because it enriches everybody's learning. However, when you're in the middle of that and you're seeking advice, and there's lots of contradictory advice out there, it takes a very confident person to step back, doesn't it, and say, well, what is best for this child? What is going to work for this child?
And I think we found as well, like, parents don't seem to trust anybody anymore, and we've got a lot of parents that when the health visitor's giving them advice, they're like, oh, well, what does she know? And you're like, well, all the years of experience.
Quite a lot.
And it's really difficult because we look to these trusted figures in the community, the GPs, the health visitors, nursery practitioners.
There's a big fear of being judged as being awful, isn't there? And it's,
it's becoming difficult. I think things that, we haven't levelled out yet. It is still quite tricky to navigate in this world with families and other professionals. But I think that it's just being honest with people and, and caring and open-minded. I think when you're working with parents and families and other professionals, you've got to see things from other people's perspective and not judge them from what they're bringing to you. They might be angry, they might have, something, and it's just being able to step back and say, it's okay, we can manage this, don't we?
Or it's okay to feel cross about that. It's like we've said about self-regulation, we're allowed to feel cross with a scenario or a situation, aren't we?
Yeah, definitely.
As I presume as a nursery provider, you're, like we've said, this holistic approach, you're having to do a lot more counselling as well, I presume.
I mean, it's like a counselling session in the morning for staff when they come in the office. We've recently had a staff member whose husband's left her over Christmas, and her grandma died a week before. And,
and that's a significant event in that person's life, isn't it?
It's significant. 2 children,
but the pressure to carry on and keep working is even greater, isn't it? Because she's got to provide. But then ultimately as well, and you're looking after other people's children, where you want to be clear-minded, a balanced approach. So how did you manage that?
Just obviously let her cry for a good half an hour, and she actually came back into work, and we were doing a training day, and we were talking about self-regulation and understanding your own feelings, and and I think for her, and a lot of her staff will tell us that nursery is their safe place. We talk a lot about the children, it being a safe place for them. but a lot of our staff feel the same. Like we say we're a family, and yes, we're going to irritate each other, and things aren't always going to be perfect. But I think it's that you're safe here, and if you need to come in and cry for half a day in the office, we'll figure that out. Like it's fine. But we need you well in order to support the rest of your team and the children.
And ultimately, if your staff team feel valued, supported, important, you're going to get the best out of them as well, aren't you? You know, that ultimately then the children are receiving better care as well, aren't they?
And I think that's where I've seen my job role change, because we have a nursery manager who runs both settings, and I'm classed as the executive nursery manager, and my job role changed into I'm more like mother hen, and my job is to make sure everyone's okay. I've started doing a lot of things around well-being in the staff, and like I said, it's a very popular thing at the moment, but it is about...
What do you do? How do you?
So I sent out a questionnaire about the well-being, like on a scale to 5, and we focused it around sleep, nutrition, movement, I think it were resilience, I think it were 4 or 5 things, and then they scaled themselves. And then we have a software system, a nursery software system, so on that every week I posted hints and tips of how they could support themselves, really quick, like 5 minutes of doing this. Then I sent out another questionnaire after, I think it was 6 weeks that I'd done it. We do calendar events every month where we do something together. It might be like a wellbeing walk, or we're doing woo week next.
What's that?
So for Valentine's, they pick a name out of a hat and they have to do something kind for somebody.
Oh, that's lovely.
So we're trying to do like family picnic events, just things so we can get together as a team, and it's not always about nursery. And I think I want to extend that further and do things with our families as well. So maybe like hire a play gym and everyone puts 2, and so all people can be together. It's not just conversations at the door, it's being able to meet with the other parents of the children in the room, or talk to parents of parents in preschool, so you know what that experience is going to be like. It's just just bringing people together as a community. We run toddler groups and things, but obviously working parents they can't come to them.
It's hard, isn't it?
So it's just thinking more about how we can help each other more, and I know sometimes it's more work for us, but I think you get so much out of doing more.
And I presume, and I know we've touched slightly there on children with special educational needs. When you start that path with that parent and that child, you could be turning their world upside down, can't you? That their special bundle of joy isn't quite perfect.
Yeah.
They are perfect.
Yeah.
They are that perfect individual, but
it's not met the expectations.
Yeah, you're shattering that little sort of bubble, aren't you? And that can be very isolating, can't it? And very sort of scary when you start to begin to have those conversations with parents. So I presume by getting all these families together, it shows that they're not alone as well.
And sense, obviously, there's not many support groups around, or if there is, you have to already have a diagnosis, which obviously takes quite a long time. So it's opening up avenues for parents where they can access support from each other, because there's no better experience than speaking to
a parent with a similar situation.
My 14-year-old daughter has a brain condition, and it wasn't until meeting other families that it really started to make sense. I learned more. They could, again, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Let me give you the number for a consultant, go back to your GP. It's things like that, and I think that really stands us in good stead with our families. Like my experience, my background, I can really empathise with a lot of families and say to them, I understand, I've been in this position myself, there is no judgment, but the advice I would give you is and that really helps, because it helps break down the barriers.
They accept it more, definitely.
Definitely.
This is all right, I'm getting support. It's not, because ADHD is becoming a lot more widely known, seen. I don't know whether more children are, we are quicker to pick, the signs up, or whether, more children are.
Yeah, it's the same with ASD.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a huge spectrum there, isn't there? And I think most of us could probably place ourselves on it at some point with different scenarios, couldn't we? It's just, it's where the line draws, isn't it? But I think one of the hardest, things for me when I first came across it, and I really like that empathy, was standing back and watching a parent absolutely break down inside. That her daughter would not perform the way that she wanted her to, that she felt that society wanted her daughter to behave, perform, interact with other children. She was shouting, she was screaming, she was throwing herself on the floor. And as an early years, you can just get on the floor, can't you, with that child? You can get on their level. You can, if you're skilled, you can calm them down and you can develop that. But for me, the main thing that I took when I first saw that was her mum. And her mum's absolute trauma. You could see it in her face that she was being judged by all the other parents whose other children were conforming to what was expected. The odd funny face at the as you do. And she just, and I really felt for her there, really felt, and I just thought, you need more support than your child needs. And it's hard, isn't it?
Well, the parents go through a grief process, don't
Absolutely.
they? You're going through a process of my expectations were, and that's been taken away from me, and then they're expected to put support in place and support the child how they should, and it doesn't work like that. Like parent, it could take 6 months for her to come to terms with it, and all the time the 6 months passing for this child that does need that intervention, especially under the age of 5. And we've got a lot of SEND children across both our sites. We have a full-time SENCO who literally works as SENCO because we can't manage to free anyone up from the rooms to do it. And them tentative steps for parents, but we found a lot of parents are actually coming to nursery and saying, I think my child has ASD, so they're already identifying it. We had some issues over COVID where parents were quite well scripted in ASD and all things, neurodiverse, and it was hard for us because we're on a line now where we're saying, is it ASD or are we looking at parenting capacity, especially for children where there may be some child protection issues. And obviously we're not, educational psychologists, we can't diagnose, but it's becoming more and more complex. And I think schools, we're quite close with a lot of head teachers in the area. We work really closely with them, and they're saying they're having the same issues. We've got children that maybe have some underlying behavioural issues and maybe some severe trauma there, but they're getting an ASD diagnosis in order to get help, because if they don't have a diagnosis...
But that's an incorrect diagnosis, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And then that label's
because
there, isn't it?
Especially ADHD and trauma, they're so closely correlated to the symptoms. It's very difficult, but there's no wrong or right answer with it. It's difficult, isn't it? And as parents, like I say, I think the biggest piece of advice I would offer any nursery practitioner, manager or parent is just to educate yourself. Because I think a lot of parents are like, once we get the diagnosis, and I'm like...
But like you say, sometimes it could be more of a parenting style, can't it? Because we briefly touched on independence. They can just learn through... Well, there's a big part to, learning through exploration. But this learning with no boundaries that has a real connotation, doesn't it? A real sort of...
Definitely coming through, isn't it?
And then that's when you see... start to see some behaviour issues because suddenly you're in a nursery environment where they will be told, that's not quite how we do it here, isn't it? And, maybe hear the word no for the first time and how then that is perceived. And
that could be a real trigger, the word no, for a lot of children. We've had to change our language to stop for some children because no's an instant trigger for them. I mean, I've gone to take children to the door to see the parents before, and the child might be kicking off, like, I don't want to leave nursery. And you've got parents like, let's go to the shop. No, all right, well, we'll go to the bigger shop. And if you, oh, well, why don't we go to, and I'll go get you a, donut. And I'm like, can everyone just shush? So we just let her feel this emotion right now.
There's an eagerness to please, isn't there?
I'm like, I'm overwhelmed, never mind the child. Like,
don't want to go to the small shop, the big shop, have a donut, or the lot.
Like, let's just offer you everything in order. And I was like, you don't need to do that for my sake. I'm not bothered. Like, she's just feeling this huge emotion and she just needs to feel it, And then she came out of it. Don't want to wear my coat, it's really cold outside. I was like, well, we have a choice. We either wear the coat or we put the coat in the bag. And Mum was like, it's cold. And I was like, but she'll feel cold and then she'll ask you for the coat. It's just a control thing. It's fine. She isn't going to die for a walk to the bus
But
stop.
also, there's that fear of somebody's going to judge me because my child is outside in the freezing temperatures with no coat on.
Yeah, definitely. And it is. And
then I am labelled as a,
It is, you can't do anything now, can you, without being judged for something or a photo popping up on social media somewhere. I can't believe this woman. And it's a real fear-based world we're living in, isn't it, for parents? It's, it's
constantly watched.
The pressures are really on.
It's really hard, isn't it, just to, like you say, step back and be confident with, this is what works for this child. Whether it's you perceive that as to be, correct or that's what's working for this child. And the end goal is, and lots of children take different paths to get to those goals.
Definitely. They're not all the same, are they? You really have to change, how you are with them, your language with them, your body language with them, and I think this is the thing with practitioners now. You're almost having to become like, mini psychologists because complexities in children's personalities and development is just becoming so far-reaching. It's crazy. And we seem to, I don't know if other nurseries find this, because we're in an area of deprivation in the UK, one of the top 7%. So along with that comes a lot of child protection issues. We have a lot of families that need support, and we tend to advertise, attract practitioners that possibly have interesting backgrounds themselves, trauma, children with SEND. But obviously that then comes, that can bring a whole host of, not problems, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
But they bring so much to the table in terms of skills, knowledge, experience.
Experience, definitely.
Yeah. But like I said, they also bring their baggage with them as such. So for me, my job stepped up a notch because I had to learn to support them to do their job better.
Yeah.
It's...
So do you find the recruitment processes differed?
Yeah.
To highlight that from the onset.
Yeah, we always say we're a different, we're not your average private day nursery. We are different. We believe in supporting the children.
I think you've got a new nursery name going on there, haven't you?
Tagline. Welcome to Misfits. We need to change the name. But we are different. We work a lot with local universities, Huddersfield University. We've done a lot of research projects. Anyone comes to us and says, are you happy to get involved? We're like, come along. We had the EEF come out and film us last week. That was absolutely mental. But it's that take every opportunity going. It's really good mood boosting for the staff, anything
you
they
always
can
get something from it, won't you?
It's not seen it as a negative. A lot of people would see it as a negative. Well, why do they want to come to us? And we think it's great. They want to come to us. Come in, just see what we're like.
Yeah,
but also,
we've got nothing to hide.
It's quite a privileged position.
Oh, yeah.
They've thought of you.
Yeah,
out of all the nurseries that are out there.
Yeah.
We'll go there.
It's nice.
Right, so that concludes today's episode. Some really good discussions there. Thank you for your time, both of you. And we look forward to our next one.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It's been lovely.